So this is what we're gonna be making today, a cool little Toon / anime explosion. I hope you like, I hope you enjoy, so let's get into it. Choose universal render pipeline, give it a name. I'm gonna give it Boom Boom, because why the fuck not, I mean. Let's go down here, press create. Before we start, we're gonna need 3 things. So open up Blender or any 3D modeling software, delete the default cube on the camera and the light, then Shift A to add a sphere, then right click and smooth it flat, smooth it smooth, then go into UV, select all of the UV and rotate it 90 degrees by pressing R, then writing 90 on your keyboard. Then export this into your Unity. Next thing we need is 2 textures to jump into any draw program. I'm gonna choose Photoshop. So make a new file, make it 1000 by 1000, and then make the background black and then add a new layer. I'm gonna use this little fantastic tool right here. Try to follow what I'm doing. You're just I can't guide your hand, but you can see what I'm doing and try to replicate it, kind of. I'm just making kind of a general star shape here, just try to follow it. And then I'm filling it in with white. After that I will correct the shape a little bit, because it's not quite centered. It looks much better the more centered the thing is, so you could actually put up some guidelines and make sure it's 100% centered. Then I'm gonna go up here and add this ring, make sure it's kind of centered as well. Make sure you remove the fill from the ring and make the line a bit fatter, and also make sure it's white. Then hide the layer with the ring and select the smudge tool and do these little stripes. As you see me doing here, it's easier if you have a drawing tablet, because then pen pressure and stuff. With the mouse you have a constant pressure, so it will not look as good, but you can try. But I would recommend using a drawing tablet. Then hide the layer with the star and go to the ring layer and do like zigzags with the smudge tool all around it, and then select the eraser tool with the opacity and just delete some stuff at random. And then go back to the other layer and kind of do the same thing as you see me doing here. And then export it to Unity. Make a clean 1000 by 1000, and then we're gonna make the background black again. Make it black and add a new layer on top of it, and then select the amazing tool and just gonna make a simple shape like this. Kind of explosion effect with 5 spikes, just like this. It's pretty easy, and then fill it in. And then we're gonna double click the layer and add an outer glow to it. Just a little outer glow, very subtle, but so it's still there. And export that to Unity and we can finally begin. So let's start. We're gonna start by making an empty game object, and we're gonna call that explosion or boom. I'm just gonna call it boom. And then I'm gonna make an effect, a particle system. Rename this to smoke. Smoke. Jesus. Then we're gonna make some folders here. We're gonna make a shaders folder, as well as a mattes folder for materials, and then a text folder for textures. We're gonna put our 2 textures in here, keep it nice and organized, and then we're gonna right click on the shader. We're gonna create a new unlit graph, call it smoke. Open it up here. I'm gonna make it full screen like this. Let's start by going over here, right click, add new UV, grab this, drag it out, search for split, take the R, drag it out, and make a step node. This thing here is gonna let us control a cool thing, pretty much. Then I'm gonna drag this out here and search for lerp. The T, never mind. Just right click, create node, lerp, drag the out to the T, and then we're gonna make 2 colors here. Put them out here. Color 1, we're gonna make HDR, as well as gonna make it increase intensity to like 6, and choose a color you want. This is gonna be the glowing color, the fiery color, whatever you're gonna wanna call it. And we're gonna drag this into the A and this into the B. And I'm gonna change the black to a more of a dark gray. And then we're gonna put this into the color here. This looks a bit weird, don't mind that. Go back in here and on this, make right click, create, press M to make a new material, and then name it smoke. Drag the smoke shader into the smoke material, drag the smoke material onto the smoke particles, and then we're gonna remember to set all of this to 0 on the boom or explosion or whatever you call it, and move it up the Y just a little bit. Now go into smoke, set the lifetime 3, set the start speed to 0, 3D start size, click here, random between 2 constants, make it 1.5 on all the different I don't know what's called, but yeah, I guess you understand. So make this 0, press the plus to make a burst. The burst is makes it so all the particles spawn at the same time. And then also, before I forget, go into your model here and set the scale factor to 100 and then apply. Go down to the shape. Never mind, scroll up to the X and write -90. This is gonna make it so the cone shape is aimed upwards. Change the angle to 0, and then you can choose a radius here. The radius will be basically the spread of the particles. Go down to render mode, mesh, take your sphere mesh here, drag it in here. Now it's starting to look like something. So go up to your velocity over a lifetime, click, check the box, click down here, curve, press the Z axis, make sure this one is yellow. Also click this and make random between the 2 curves. Right click on this line, add a key, be a pretty nice spread, and then we're gonna go into the size over lifetime, check that box and make it like that, kind of. Also set it to 3. And now we need to make it so we can control how much fire / how much of the smoke is shown here. So let's open up our shader, go in here, and what we want to control is this value right here. You can do it with code if you want to, but this is a much easier way. So you can take both of these, right click and copy them, drag them down here, set the UV to UV1, then drag the R in here. Save this, close, go into your particles here, scroll down to custom data, check it, as well as custom vertex streams, check that, press the plus, UV, UV2, press the plus again, go down to custom 1x, and then we go over here to custom data and press vector, set this to 1 and make this a curve. So if we make it a curve like that, as you see, the fire or the flames or whatever you want to call it now dissipates and disappears, and there's only smoke left. So the intensity of this seems to be a little bit high. I'm gonna lower it to like 4. And that looks much better in my opinion. So with that, we're gonna make the other small effects. So right click boom, press the effects particles, rename this to explosion, Remove the shape and make the emission to a burst 1. Remove the rate over time. Set the start lifetime to 0.3. Set start size to like 6 or something. You're gonna have to mess around with these values if you want it to be just perfect. Then we need to make a new shader kind of. So going to shader, unlit graph, call it glow this time. Make it so we want to make a glowing texture here, as well as want to make it so we can control the color from the particle system. So we're gonna click the plus here, texture 2D, drag it out, drag it here, search for sample 2D, take the R, drag it out, press multiply B, and then we want to add a color here. Make that color HDR, set the opacity to full, as well as set the color to white, then put it in here. Take this, drag it out, search for multiply, right click, create node vertex color. Vertex color is what makes us being able to control the color from the particle system. Drag this out to a split node. Take the A here and drag it into the alpha and this into the color. And also click this little cog here and make it transparent. That should be it. Now if we create a new material by right click, hold create and press M, and rename this to explosion, and drag the glow thing to it, and then drag the explosion to the explosion. Go in here, scroll down where it says non-texture, press select and select your mark texture. Never mind, that's the wrong one, I mean the explosion texture, of course. And go here to render, where you see pivot, put 0.5. This is to put the pivot in the bottom of the sprite or the 2D texture. Then we want to set the start speed to 0. We want to go down here and color over lifetime. Press this little arrow thing here, drag the alpha to 0. This makes it fade, as well as we want to set the size over lifetime to be something else. Set it like this, kind of, and set the thing to 3. This makes it quite big, as well as we want to set the color of this to orange, and also increase the intensity here. This just adds a little bit of extra oomph to the explosion. You have to mess around with the size of this thing so it looks good, so it isn't too large, too small, or if you want to have it at all. So right click boom again, go to effects, particle system, rename this to par, as well as click on the explosion, Ctrl D to duplicate it, rename it, not delete it, rename it to, I'm going to rename it to par, and select the texture here, select the default particles, then drag this onto the par, go down to render, go to billboard, stretch billboard, set the scale length to 5, as well as we want to select the shape and make a hemisphere. Let's stop these so we can see this hemisphere here down here, and rotate it 90 degrees on the X so it's faced upwards, and then we want to make it a burst as well. And here on the start speed, press random between two constants, 30 and 50, This should be a nice speed, pretty explosive, as well as we want to set the lifetime to 0.5. Go down to the color of a lifetime, set the alpha to 0 here so it fades out as well. Then you can change the color to an orange, whatever you feel fits. I recommend having, you can also take the color you chose here and copy it and paste it so it fits. Now we're gonna make some smoke, make it look more like a mushroom cloud here. Also one more thing, on the size of our lifetime, select it here. We're gonna drag this down over here and right click to make it look something like this, to make the smoke dissipate after, so it gets smaller and smaller and finally disappears. Right click, click on this, Control D, rename it to ground smoke, and turn off velocity over lifetime and go to the shape, show circle here. The radius need to be a bit bigger, I think. Something like that. Let's see how that looks. It looks pretty nice, pretty nice. You can also go here to the size over lifetime and change this to a 2. Personally, I think it looks a bit better if the ground smoke is smaller than the other smoke, like that. You can mess around with the radius if you want it, depending on how big you want it, but I'm gonna make it 4.9, like that. And now all that's left is the mark on the ground. So let's create an effect, a particle system, rename it to mark. Then we wanna remove the shape, and the emission is going to be 1 burst, 0 rate over lifetime, 0 rate over time I mean. Then on the size over lifetime we're gonna set it to be really aggressive here. We're also gonna set the life to like 3 or 4, depending on how long you want it to survive. And we're gonna have to do another shader here. So create an unlit shader and call it mark, I guess. Open it up, full screen here. I'm gonna click this, add 2D texture, drag it out here, drag it here, make it a sample. Just like that, and then we want to drag the R into a multiply node, into the B, and then we want to make a vertex color here and drag it into the A, and then we're gonna split this and drag the A into the alpha and the out into the color. This is gonna be transparent as well. Just like that, and we're gonna save this, close it down, right click, create to make a new material, drag the mark into the mark into the mark, scroll down here, click this and select the mark. Set the speed to 0, set the start to like something like something big. Also go down here to render and make it a horizontal billboard and set the max particle size to 3. So it's a bit underground, so select the boom and drag it up a bit. The color is totally wrong, so we're gonna make it a dark black or dark gray. And then we're just gonna increase the start size until it fits. And also go in here and color over lifetime, and we wanna set the alpha in the back to 0, so it fades out as well. So that's basically how you do a cartoon / anime explosion. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want the unit project files, you can find it on my Patreon on the 2nd tier. Thanks you so much for watching. Leave ideas and tips in the comments, or anything if you want to see any other effects or something you want me to make, and so forth and so on. And have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.